Go ahead and call this meeting to session. This is meeting of the Norwood City Council Finance Budget Audit Committee, Tuesday, May 16th at 6:30. We've got two items on our agenda today. First item concerns bank reconciliation. It was put in here in the committee by Mr. Miracle, and as part of FRP requirements. And then after that we're going to go over any questions anybody might have on the non-union pay rate ordinance that was introduced to council last session. So first off, bank reconciliation. Want to thank James Bonshall and Tim Wagers for coming to the meeting and talking about this. I'll just kind of open this up. Mr. Miracle put this in, said it's something we need to do monthly, review finance committee, report out on it in main council meeting to meet financial requirement plan or financial recovery plan requirements. So I was wondering, Mr. Bonshall, if you could explain to us what bank reconciliation is, why we have to do it every month, and then let us know when we'll be able to start doing it.
No, yeah. Well, I will say, so thanks one for having us. So Tim Wagers is our tax commissioner. Tim's going to be the one that's on a day-to-day basis. He's going to be the one actually doing kind of the work. So we'll talk kind of some of the things about the bank reconciliations, about what's happened in the past and kind of where we're at now. Okay. So I'll say initially, just, we used to have two of these financial supervisors. We had April and then Anna Mary. April's retired, but since I've been elected treasurer, April is, they've done their own bank reconciliation for the city, like the state auditors have, but we've also, using VIP software, we've done it ourselves as well. And there are some kind of long-standing issues that, reconciling items that go back years, that make it so that the bank balance and the actual city balance doesn't completely match up. I think it's like they're down to like $6,000 or $7,000 that are kind of a difference here. So I guess long story short is we've always been told, because I would like to see those fixed. The state auditors have said they're kind of holding because they want the auditor's office and the treasurer's office all at one time to fix them the same. Like basically any entries that are made in our systems are from the auditor's office. So when it comes to the actual VIP system, which is our accounting software. Going back to your original question, the bank reconciliation. So bank reconciliation just makes sure that the bank account and the accounting software match. And there's always going to be things, deposits in transit, which are essentially checks that are not yet cashed or credited. There's going to be outstanding checks. There's going to be things that are always accounted for on the reconciliation, but in the end, once you account for those that are just normal items, the numbers should match up. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Tim to so that's kind of the history is just that we are on hold, but Tim can kind of tell you what we are doing right now, what we've been doing to get a hold of some of this to make sure that we're up to date. Sorry.
Yes. Kind of just like Mr. Bonshall said, the bank reconciliation is only to ensure that the city's book balance, right? So the balance of the accounting software matches the actual funds inside the bank account. We do that a number of different ways, a lot of which just goes back to the bank statements. We take the bank statements and we match them up to the individual pay-ins or expenses that the city has on the VIP software. VIP is a relatively new software for the city, so there's some kinks that are still being worked out. We do what's called a proof of cash statement. So essentially it starts with the ending balance of the previous month. We add in all the revenues that were collected, all the expenditures that went out, and then at the end of it all, it should match to what the ending balance is. So we do that, and we do that monthly. It's right, it's correct. So we are balanced. The Treasury and the Auditor's Office are balanced with each other. However, there's just some software issues that we're trying to work through to where the bank reconciliation that is input into the software is correct and matches. So what we do manually, it comes out and there's zero variance, everything is perfect. It's exactly the way that it should be. With the software, because we just brought in Paycor relatively recently as well, so part of the upload file that goes into VIP is not grabbing all of the information that is needed. So it's showing a little bit of a variance, in which case we know about. So right now we're kind of, I guess, dual hatting and doing two reconciliations at the same time, just to ensure that we're balanced while we're trying to work through the kinks in the software, and then part of which that's going to require Anna Mary to come in and, I guess, wipe the slate clean, for lack of a better term, just to where we can get on track and then get a proper format and presentation to be able to bring to you guys monthly.
Okay. So basically, we're waiting on Anna Mary to be able to come and work with you all to get it evened out.
Well, that's part of it. There's something going on with the way that, again, the treasurer's office does not make the accounting entries, so that's all done in the auditor's office. So there is something going on with creating that variance that keeps changing a little bit, at some point every year. And this is not the variance between the bank account and this is the variance that's just in the BIP software. Again, we're doing it manually on the side, when I say that on the side. But even if we didn't have VIP, the way that we're doing it manually could be a very acceptable way to do it. It would be 100%, legitimate. It's just that the end goal for both the auditor's office and the treasurer's office is that everything matches up, because we want it all to be done systematically and automatically, because that will reduce errors in the future. But there is still some minor discrepancies in how the auditor's office is accounting for some items, and it's likely, but Tim has done quite a bit of research on this, and it's very likely that some of it is a fee that we get from Paycor whenever we do payroll. Essentially, when employees pay part of their portion of their health insurance, I think what we think is that there's some kind of a glitch where it's basically being attributed, those funds are being attributed to an incorrect place. And so once that is fixed, we're doing some more research to just confirm that, but Tim is...
It's just not grabbing all of the expense. So it's showing, we say that we're spending X amount of dollars on payroll, but there's a portion of that the software is not grabbing. So that's part of the reason why we reverted back to just doing it manually. Right. It's just to make it easier and to ensure that we're balanced. So we ensure we're balanced, but with the way that we're doing it manually, it's on a month-to-month for everything, past revenue, past expense. It's just for instance, the month of January. So the month of January, we can show where we started, how much we earned, how much we spent, where we ended, and everything matches correctly. So, it's really a software glitch to keep putting it into the software. But as far as actually balancing on a month-to-month basis, we got that pretty well under control.
Yep. And so the plan going forward now is going to be, we're going to actually give you all a summary of I was waiting because April last year told us to not send summaries to you all yet because she wanted to make sure that we get all the corrections made. Well, she ended up retiring, so those haven't been made, but they're working on it. But what we are going to do, and we talked about this today, and we're going to make sure this happens, by your second council meeting of every month, we'll have a small packet that we'll send you that'll include the summary of the reconciliation, and I'll make sure you all get it ahead of time. You get it ahead of time just so you can review it to make sure this is the format you want it in. And we can change formats if you all have any concerns about that. But we'll give you the summary of the reconciliation and then the tax receipt, the revenue report that we produce every now and then. We'll just have all of that in one package. And we can, we're supposed to have the reconciliation done. I think it's an Ohio Revised Code that says the 15th of every month.
15th of the month.
So, we can definitely aim for the 15th. I don't know if Ken's going to make you all have a finance committee meeting every month, but if he does, we can definitely make sure that you can assume that you will get it by the 15th of every month, or the 16th, I guess, the day after. Right. But yeah, you'll get that package, you'll get that report. That's going to knock off two birds with one stone of the report on accounting methods. we're kind of, like I said, we're just kind of grabbing at this point now, like within the last month or two, the treasurers, Ava and Tim, they're just grabbing it by the horns because we haven't gotten direction that we really want from Anna Mary.
Yeah.
And you all have seen this throughout the city. She's probably got 10 or 15 different entities she's working with, so. But the end goal is for us to get out of fiscal emergency because at this point, we're paying quite a bit of money to them every year to stay in it. So, but yeah, we're working on that. We have a meeting with the auditor and the deputy auditor next Tuesday. So we're going to kind of drill down with them on some of the things that we find. We're basically going to we're redoing a past reconciliation where we're going to do them both using the VIP system that's flawed right now because of some of the entries,
Right.
and using our manual process. And we're going to turn the results, we're going to do everything we can to research it, but we will be turning the results over to the auditor's office to here's your discrepancy. We actually don't even have access to see all of the entries right now, which that's another thing that we're working on with them is they control who has access to what in VIP. So we're going to get Tim and myself at least a read-only access to pretty much the entire journal, all of the journal entries, which we can't see right now in VIP. So there's just a couple things we're doing to try to kind of grab it by the horns to make sure that we don't want the reconciliation to be the thing that keeps us in fiscal emergency. However, I will just tell you if Chuck were here too, Chuck would have heard this as well. For years they've been talking about this wipe the slate clean thing for all these, not for this current entry where the entries are kind of off, but there's a bunch of stuff from years and years ago where the unaccounted for items are items that were either in the bank statement but not in an entry, or they were in an entry and not in the bank statement. And these would be, again, these are 10 years ago type things, so it's stuff in the past. We've been told by her that council's going to have to pass an ordinance or something to kind of wipe that clean. Still waiting on that, but either way, we're going to still reconcile the bank accounts manually until we can hear otherwise and make sure that you all have those reports. So,
with the whole kind of wipe everything clean, what's your thought, or is it worth it just to be these are the dates, this is what it was, we think this is why? I don't know how much you guys will be able to tell because it was so long ago, but would it those have to be itemized and?
Yeah, so they've got a list of items that actually at this point we should just give it to them because, not that we're holding it, but we're all kind of frustrated at this point about some of the past. But yeah, there's definitely a list of items from the past, and some of it's just really small, minor stuff. Some of it's, I don't even remember some of the items that are on it because I saw, yeah. But either way, yeah, we'll make sure if Ava has a list, then send it to me and I'll make sure it gets to them, so.
What's the most recent date on one of those items?
I guess kind of the most recent, and it's something that we've sort of corrected already, would have been the Slane Street project. Really, it's just kind of working out the kinks and using a new finance software with us recording revenues and expenses whenever we're technically just a pass-through entity. So, the stuff being paid off of a grant, being paid directly to the contractor that's performing the work. However, we still have to record it as a revenue and an expense. So it's just kind of collaboration between our office, the treasurer's office, and the auditor's office, just to make sure that we're getting that through and that everything is appropriated properly to where it's reflecting accurately at the end.
Yeah, and there's random things like that on there. And there might, when you actually reconcile the bank account, there are times before we finish it that we find that there are errors. So there's an entry that's not made or an entry that was made incorrectly. We partner with the auditor's office on that. It's nowadays, at this point, there really shouldn't be, except for when there's questions about how to address something, that's a little bit different. But just from a purely standpoint of something that was missed, we're catching it because when we do the bank reconciliations and when we do them manually. So
yeah, it gets caught pretty quickly, and some of the errors are, they're minute whenever you're looking at the city's finance as a whole, but really there's just so many different portions of it. So when you're dealing with so many different revenues and so many different expenses going in and out daily, for instance, one thing being recorded the previous month, but then just the money was there, the payment was made. However, some of the paperwork was incorrect. So then we go back through and we do those corrections, and then it's making sure that at the end of the day, the book balance is correct. So if we don't do portions, so if a $50,000 payment is made and there was an error on it, we replace that entire $50,000 as if that transaction never happened and then correct it the proper way. So just ensuring that each one of those individual items are done and done correctly really changes the process, because once you get to the end of the month, now you're going through 400 or 500 transactions trying to figure out which is which and where this error came from. And whenever you start getting to the smaller dollar amounts, it's like trying to find a needle in a needle stack.
I'd love to continue just to be kept in touch. Kind of you're talking about like working with the auditor's office, because I'm sure that to become zero or balanced, you need to know all of that. So going forward, I know you guys are trying to get access to certain things, but just that communication piece would be, as you continue to grow and all of that, working together there would be good.
Always willing to help facilitate that with the committee as well.
Yeah, if we need to schedule a meeting after or whatnot, but.
Yeah. I very much appreciate that. I'm sure Tim does as well. I mean, we have I will say the relationship between the treasurer's and the auditor's office is probably better than it's been, in a very long time. There have been, we've learned to work with the auditor's office, they've learned to work with us. We do our best to work with them, but I will say that we're definitely in a better place now. So there's not the errors that are, the ones that are from the very much in the past that actually the accounting software gets locked down after like the year is fully closed out. But those kind of errors in the past were thankfully, because of the communication that we have now, they're not happening. So and it's been pretty good for quite a while now. So Tim's, I think, has been the tax commissioner since May, and he's made it a very high priority to try to have a good relationship with the deputy auditor. And so, but I appreciate that, and we'll definitely be happy to come back anytime you want us to be here. So this is an important topic. We want to make sure that you all are fully aware of what's going on.
Great. Any other questions about reconciliation? Great. Well, thank you both so much for coming and answering questions. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next we're going to move on to our ordinance for authorizing non-union employee pay rates. Mr. Powers is here to discuss and answer questions. I know you and I talked quite a bit about this, and you were able to give a kind of a brief overview during the council meeting. I just wondered if you wanted to reiterate things that you spoke about at the council meeting and just allow folks to ask questions if we need to.
Absolutely, be happy to do that. So this salary ordinance, like I said, at council is similar to what you see in a lot of other communities, in that it's a more robust ordinance than what we've typically done in the past. So it breaks the things out organizationally in a way that kind of ties it to the department, so you know what the structure of each department looks like when you're looking at those non-union employees. It gives a step plan for a number of employees, so that will help employees who are coming in understand what does their future look like with the city, what can my pay raises be expected to look like over a course of several years. I have listed the pay here in an hourly format, regardless of whether or not the position is an exempt position or not. And what exempt ties back to is the Fair Labor Standards Act. So exempt positions are those that are salaried positions. So they're not truly paid an hourly rate. The non-exempt positions are the hourly ones. So those will be paid the way that you see that there. If you want to get an idea of what any of these positions is paid on an annual basis, multiply it by 2080. That will give you that rate. Excuse me. pollen season has gotten the best of me. The reason I list these rates hourly is so that they're easy to compare apples to apples. So you can look at one, you can look at the Human Resources Director and you can say, what is that compared to any of these hourly positions here? Also includes authorized hiring levels. So if you look, there's a column QTY, that's quantity, and that tells you how much of these positions you can hire. The place where that is not true is with our part-time employees. So part-time employee hiring is based on the appropriation set by council, because part-time employees tend to work a variety of different hours. There are some salary adjustments throughout this document, all based on our earlier ordinances. So there are some minor ones to kind of resolve some rounding errors. And when I talk about rounding errors, I mean if you have a position that's paid $50,000 an hour or $50,000 a year, $50,000 a year doesn't actually break down on a biweekly pay rate to come out in whole cents. So we're making sure that we're giving people rates that they can actually receive. So if you get a $50,000 a year pay rate, you have to adjust that a little bit when you actually go to pay that employee, either up or down. So that makes sure that we're paying people in true rates. We had a couple of positions in our last salary ordinance that were listed as exempt, but weren't meeting the requirements on the Fair Labor Standards Act to be exempt. Now, those people were actually paid at those rates, but if somebody had been paid at the basic rate, we would have had a labor law violation. So those rates have been moved up at the bottom to avoid having that problem. We've also increased the rates on a couple of positions. Those include the police chief, the fire chief, superintendent of public works, director of recreation, and my position, the safety service director, to make sure that we're offering competitive top-end rates so that when we get really good people, we can keep them here for a career, or at least keep them here for a good part of a career. There's also a portion of this document that provides for temporary pay adjustments. That's a pay rate increase of up to 10%, eligible to pay that out for a 90-day period. And it reduces it to just a couple of ways that can be done. That's either someone who's getting assigned to like a department head position who's not a department head, maybe on an acting basis. Or that could be for somebody who's just really doing an incredible job at what they're doing. This ordinance also spells out specific benefits for the fire chief and the police chief. Typically in years past, when we've had the police chief or fire chief position become vacant, we have to go into a negotiation period with that person, because when they're moving out of those union positions in the fire department, the police department, they're giving up certain benefits. So this is a way to kind of get something that's equitable and fair as somebody's moving from one of those positions into the chief position, and a way that we can do it without having to do these employment contracts every time we want to hire someone. You may recall we did that for Chief Sumner just a couple of months back, so hopefully it will avoid us having to do that legislation in the future. I believe that hits the majority of the highlights of it. Let me just have a second to skim through it and make sure I haven't missed anything big. One other thing that's just worth pointing out, it does, as part of the step plan, give out a way of doing those steps. So those would be annual, where you see that step increase. Although this does not cut off an appointing authority's ability to give up to a 10% raise, which is what our personnel policy procedure manual says. But it does put on them a duty to explain why they're giving that extra range. So, if somebody is doing an extraordinary job, that appointing authority still has the ability to give that 10%. But under normal circumstances, for a person doing a good job, but not a great job, they would follow those step raises. So I think that kind of hits the highlights on that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How often will these minimum and maximum rates be adjusted with inflation or just with changes? Is there a typical time frame, or it just depends?
So there is a provision in here. It is provision section 7, that the ordinance will be placed on the agenda of the council first month our first meeting in the month of July each calendar year, during which the pay rates in the section are in force. So that's the way it's spelled out right now. That date could get shifted around in future ordinances, but our intention is that this is something that comes back to council, and council looks at those rates, whether there's adjustments made or not, but has an understanding of what we're paying our employees every year and at least takes a look at it.
Thank you.
I think my question would be, have we punched these numbers into the financial recovery plan, and what does that look like in 5 years? Any of the upgrades or?
So right now, because we have that 10% clause, we're doing all of our positions as if they're getting a 10% increase every year in the financial recovery plan. This actually should slow that with some of those steps. The majority of the steps that are built in here for those positions are 5% between steps. So I don't know how the Fiscal Recovery Commission is going to look at that and what decision they would make as to how that would change it. The only impact that I really see with it is that you have the possibility for those couple of positions that had an increase on the top end of the salary range, that you would potentially have an impact there, but it wouldn't be a large impact.
Have we had the state auditor review this at all?
I have not.
Kind of taking a step back to assigning like the 10% or doing the 5, and this might be out of it, but for section 3 on just how the appointing authority, their stated reason for increasing, is there kind of a citywide consistency with how each department basically bases an employee's performance, or does it kind of vary per department? They do.
There's definitely some variety in that right now, and so this is kind of an attempt to lay out, this is what the regular progression should look like. You know, as we sit right now with just the appointing authorities can do up to 10%. Some of them are doing on the lower end of that, some of them are doing on the top end of that, some of them only do the top end of that. Mm-hmm. So this would kind of give some guidance on what's a practice that we can have standardized across the organization.
Okay. Do we have, like, you know, I just think of jobs and like, you meet with your manager and like, these are the goals that we set at the beginning of the year and this is where you're at and this is what you've done. Is there like a calculation that like, okay, 1 to 5, this is your performance and you exceeded expectations, so you're gonna get the 10%, or hey, you've been doing your job, good job, so we're gonna give you the 1 step. Is there anything like that, like where there's a...
So we do have a written performance review form. Basically, each item on there is meets the expectations, exceeds the expectations, or does not meet the expectations. Mm-hmm. There's some kind of written parts of that too, to give a little bit of a story to it, not just a yes, no, or indifferent.
Yeah.
And those are used in the departments managed by the administration to do anything. You know, I couldn't speak for the other appointing authorities, but we are doing that for the non-union positions and, you know, the police department, the fire department, public works, kind of across the administrative departments.
I think the only question, concern that I would have is how the state auditors see and embrace the automatic step up. I'd like to know if that's an issue. I think that'd be the only thing that I have an issue with.
So just to kind of give you a little bit more information on that, there is a requirement that an employee demonstrates that good performance in order to get that step increase. So they do have to get that positive performance review, and if they don't, that step can be skipped. Okay. So it's not automatic. It is tied.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now there's a little bit of a caveat to that, in the sense that you can't just skip an employee forever and forever, because, you know, what you're saying to that employee is you're not getting a step increase because you're not meeting those performance expectations. And an employee who continues not to meet those performance expectations shouldn't continue to work here.
That's right. That's a good point.
And so, well, you know, we kind of baked that in here as an encouragement to appointing authorities too, to not just, don't just keep skipping this person for pay. You know, you need to address the problem.
And the current FRP that we have does include step up for all of our employees. Like you said, it's just at 10% per
Correct.
year because we don't know where.
It is,
It's at least a max of 10%, so
Yeah.
we figure it that way.
it is assuming everyone gets that 10%.
Okay. So it's not that a step up isn't considered in the FRP, it's just that this particular step up hasn't been evaluated yet.
Yeah, the step up that we're doing in the FRP is just following that personnel manual, which says everybody's eligible for 10%. So it gives everybody 10%.
Gotcha.
This is still saying that everybody's eligible for that 10%, but to get more than what's in your step system here, if you're in one of the stepped positions, you have to really be doing an extraordinary job.
Gotcha. Any other questions? Guess not.
All right.
All right. So that's going to wrap up our meeting. Want to thank Mr. Powers for coming and sharing his time with us. And thank you all for coming too. And that's it.